Few moments left with Michael Graham, and I just wanted to briefly, Michael, just look at how Donald Trump galvanised and hoovered up some of those areas that Republicans don't usually do too well with. I'm thinking the under-30s. I think I'm right in saying that he did better with the under-30s than any Republican candidate in about 20 years. So he managed to get them. A lot of people say, well, it was social media, really. Big presence. His team are out there. They go big on TikTok. They go big on X. And, of course, podcasts as well, most notably the Rogan podcast, which resulted in Rogan himself endorsing Donald Trump. All of that, I guess, is a big factor here.
Yes, and he also did a bunch of podcasts that target young men, and they're not usually politically active men, and Democrats were kind of laughing and saying, oh, that's nonsense. You know, women are going to own this election. The most fascinating number from last night that I saw, and, you know, exit polls are kind of shaky, and it always takes a few weeks for them to go back and double process them to get more socially scientific numbers. But the big number last night was that Kamala Harris's performance as a percentage of the population for women was exactly the same as Joe Biden's. Yeah. She picked up no more women as a group. Meanwhile, Donald Trump blew the doors off with guys, which is why you are where you are. Blew the doors off with guys. Why? In a lot of part because men of color, Black Americans and Hispanic Americans, obviously he didn't win the group, but Republicans are supposed to get 5 or 8%. He was getting 15%. Yeah. And that there's the election right there. Just spread that around. And if he wins Nevada, that'll, to me, will be a real sign that he has recreated the team that makes up the Republican alliances. You know, you look at your parties, why do people join Labor versus Tory, and they've got different interests, and you call them together. And of course, you're in a different situation. You have multiple parties, so people will move around even more. In America, you really got two jerseys to wear. And what's happened is a bunch of affluent white women have put on the Democratic jersey, who used to wear Republicans, but not as many as they had hoped. Meanwhile, a bunch of working class men, particularly African-American and Hispanic, have put on the Republican jersey. That's a different team now. Yeah. And if the Republicans are smart, they'll start governing like it's a different team.
Well, it's going to be, as I said just before before the break there, Michael, it's going to be anything but dull in the next 4 years. And I, for one, am absolutely delighted on that basis alone. And, of course, he's beaten one of the most inept politicians I think I've ever seen in American politics in Kamala Harris. So plenty of material for the next half a decade, Michael.
Is Lammy going to stick around?
Well, that's a very good question. Is David Lammy going to stick around after what he said? In fact, in Prime Minister's Question Time today, the new leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, repeated to the Prime Minister what Mr Lammy had previously said about Donald Trump. And Keir Starmer came back with, oh, well, we had dinner a couple of weeks ago with the President-elect and everything was nice and dandy. But I can't imagine Trump losing much sleep over David Lammy's comments. It'd be like being ravaged by a wet lettuce, right? Thank you to Michael Graham, our friend over there on Capitol Hill, managing editor at Inside Sources, big-time commentator on these kind of issues as well. There are 4 results still to go in this contest, but as it stands, there it is. The magic number is 270 to win. Trump 279, Harris 223. 4 results still to go. Looks like he's going to win the popular vote as well. So this is unequivocal territory. There's not going to be any of that. Well, was there a damaged machine somewhere? Was something wrong? There wasn't anything wrong with the last election, by the way. They just made it up and created a bit of mood music around it, and we know what happened subsequently. But there is no debate on this one. We await Kamala Harris to concede. Now, she's going to be wounded. I wonder if anybody in her camp is brave enough to really lay it on the line and explain, look, Vice President, there are bad results, and then there's this result. This is all shades of bad. For so many reasons. You got nothing, really. You hoovered up, other than the odd predictable area of voting intention, Democrats who will always vote Democrat, but you changed nothing. The female vote didn't budge. From Joe Biden to Kamala Harris, didn't budge at all. And the non-white vote, yeah, you haven't been the recipient of that either. In fact, the Donald appears to be the man that hoovered that up as well. Now, America, and I think the wider world, need to really look at that And I will stand by what I said in the early hours of this morning. This is about the establishment not reading the, not getting it, not understanding. And do you know what? You think, well, they must really understand. They must, when push comes to shove, they understand it, don't they? Sure, they're intelligent people. I don't think they do. I don't think they understand anything outside the kind of the bubble, the establishment, cosy status quo bubble that they've existed in, even in the two-party system. When it moved from one to the other, sort of shuffling in the new lot, shuffling the old lot out, and then back again at the next election, that was kind of all right. They could handle that. What they didn't want is dynamic change, somebody tinkering with the fundamentals of the system. And then Trump comes along and says, you know what, this world's gone absolutely flipping mad. It's crazy out there. We've got the sort of gender hysteria thing going on, DEI, where you can't get hired for a job unless you've ticked a gazillion boxes of nonsense that somebody just made up, by the way. All of those areas. And the general sense that politicians are sort of singing from this kind of really bizarre, when you think of the Macrons and the Trudeaus and the Starmers, this kind of, he even did it at Prime Minister's Question Time, talked about we're building the foundations. He wheeled it out again. It's exactly that has put Donald Trump back in the White House. It's a kick right squarely in the shins of establishment, bluster, gibberish and nonsense. Of course, there will always be an establishment, but this settled idea of how things have to work, and we have to embrace this, and we can't upset that group. And no, we daren't talk common sense, because if we talk common sense, there's a group of people over there that will get very upset about it. So we want to keep everybody happy. Have some philosophy, man. Have a direction. Have some balls, to put it bluntly. Mr. Trump has all of those things. That's why he's the next president. 0344 499 1000. Don't go away, Nigel and others with you shortly. More on this. The question as well, how will Donald Trump change the world? We know how he wants to change America. What does it mean elsewhere? Our lines are open. This is Talk.